Trash. Part 3, Chapter 9. This is Ratty, and it's written down. We took a bus from the dump site, took it right into the city to the big crazy bus station. Okay, he was bruised up, so he still looked a state. But when you look like me, you get kicked off like you're a curse. So he led the way, but I was steering, hiding my ugly face. Of course, when we got to the stand, we found out that buses to Zapanta's land went from a different place, so we jogged a couple of miles and caught a big red one. Under bridges, over bridges, me by the window looking out over the freeway past some shopping mall the size of a town with a great big sports stadium where they were going to have some great big boxing match. Pictures of the fighters on scaffolds, grinning down like giants. People getting up and people getting down, running for the bus, and the ticket boy banging the side, screaming. Then, in 2 hours, we were free and running out into the fruit fields in the sun. We went high up a hill and then came down into a valley, and it felt good to be getting so far away, and I could feel Raphael relaxing too, and we were humming to the music and playing with some sweet little kid on the seat in front of us. We even got a nice view of the sea, because Green Hills is right by a very pretty stretch. The rich all love a bit of the sea, don't they? And it sure smells nicer than the sludge and stuff we call Bahala. Then the driver stopped by a huge set of gates and whistled to us. People watched us getting down, and I said goodbye to them, all shaking hands for fun, then thinking I was a mad kid being taken out by a friend, so smiling back. I was laughing when we hit the ground, and I took care that we moved on straight away, though I took a big look at the gatehouse. I wasn't going to let Raphael keep still, because I knew he was scared of everything, and if I let anything happen, Garda would probably just cut my head off with his hook. 2 guards by the gate looked right at us, and I felt him tense up, but we were gone, me first, him right behind, holding my hand. I saw a guard with a dog just inside, and there were 2 with machine guns. There was a big pole to stop traffic getting through up the drive, and spikes up off the road in case anyone tried it. The road stretched off into the distance, and all the trees and grass were like a park, like paradise, like Mr. Vice President had bought up paradise and got his boys on the door in case anyone came wanting a piece of it. We ran, me laughing like we were just kids out having fun, little kids that nobody gets suspicious of, and we kept going, following the walls. We came to another gatehouse soon, just as grand, with big metal gates tight shut, and we kept on going. I guessed there'd be cameras somewhere, but the only ones I'd seen so far were at those gates, so I was more hopeful. I was pretty sure we could get into the grounds if we wanted to, just by hopping up a tree. How close we'd get to the house was another thing. And why would our souls be singing? Maybe it was on fire and the fat man's ass was roasting like a pig? That would be a thing to see. Anyway, that's when Raphael stopped, out of breath and sick suddenly. He'd pulled me back and said, "Is this such a good idea?" "What?" I just pretended not to understand, trying to get him on again. "Is this a good idea? Rat, if anyone sees me..." I put my arm right around him and pushed him to the side. "Who's going to see you?" I said. "You're asking this now? Spending my money, and all you want to do is go home?" "Well, I'm just thinking..." He was trying to be calm, but he was sweating bad. "What are we going to find out? All we're going to do is get ourselves chased and maybe even thrashed." "We've been chased before, Raphael. They don't catch us." "They're for show. They're all lazy as hell." "We've seen the place," he said. "We can see what kind of place it is." I trotted onto a tree. I thought I had to keep him moving, so I pulled him towards it. "Just follow," I said. "You're braver than me. We can do this." I got up the trunk and hauled myself higher. Raphael followed, thank goodness. And soon we were up at the leaves, looking way over the fence into the promised land. I did Bible study at the mission school, and it was helping me now. I felt like little Moses. We eased out onto the thinnest, longest stem that could take our weight and dropped easily onto the grass, rolling up onto our feet. Then we were running again towards a little cluster of trees. Coming through them past a little pond, we found ourselves on what I knew was a golf course, which nice little lawns and a flag and a little sand pit for the kids. There was nobody around, but water sprinklers sprinkling to keep the grass looking so fresh and green you wanted to roll in it. We kept low, and we tried always to be in the cover of rising ground if we could, but we saw nobody. Soon we got to a line of huge trees whose branches came down low. They were brushing the grass, and it was a good place to be. It was cool, and we were hidden. We were squeezing through to the other side and looking out. That's when we saw it. Raphael said, "Boy." I just looked at it, lost for words. "How many people live there?" he said. I laughed. I laughed for some time and finally said, "Do you know, I bet it's just him. I bet it's just one big man walking around all day, looking at his money, scared to death someone's coming to get it." "How rich do you have to be?" said Raphael. "Just look at it. Look at the towers, man. It thinks it's a castle. It thinks it's in a fairy tale." I was drinking it in, too amazed, because I had never seen anything like it. The man had chosen his spot. I'll say that for him. He'd bought up the prettiest bit of woods in the land, and just where the grass ran down nice and flat, he'd built himself a palace for the king he thought he was. It was all black and white wood, like stripes and crosses, with so many windows you wouldn't want to count them, let alone clean them. It was all stacked up in layers, and there was a golden dome in the middle catching the sun, like halfway through. The builders had said they ought to try making a cathedral, just for the fun of it. At each end stood a tower with battlements, and our country's flags were waving proudly, and everywhere else were fuzzy little spires and statues. There was a great big fountain, too, jetting up right in the front, shooting up even now in the dry season, with nobody to look at it except us. As we watched coming up the drive, we saw a police car. Then just behind us, just as we drank it in and wondered, a low voice very close said, "What are you boys wanting?" I cried out and swung around, but poor old Raphael was just running. He ran straight out into the grass, then stood, not knowing what to do, like some kind of stranded cat. I held my ground and shouted, "Stop! It's okay!" Sometimes you just know there's no danger. In a split second, and I knew the main danger was Raphael getting seen in the open. The man's voice was calm. The man who'd spoken wasn't angry with us. He was under a nearby tree, just back from ours, and we simply hadn't seen him. He hadn't even meant to scare us. I was sure of that. He was crouching so low and still that we'd gone right past. I could see a pair of grass cutters in his hands and a wide hat to keep off the sun, and it was obvious he was just a lowly old gardener, one of the hundreds they must need to keep the place so neat. Raphael sidled back and got behind me, shaking and panting. "You look for anything in particular?" said the man. "No, sir," I said. "Oh, just passing through. Maybe you just came to laugh." "What's there to laugh about?" I said. The man smiled at us both. He could see Raph was in a state. "I thought you must have heard, and that's why you're here." "Sit a moment," he said. "Have a smoke. The boys at the gatehouse say we're getting a lot of people coming by, asking if the papers are true." "We're just roaming," I said. "What's in the papers?" The man smiled again and took off his hat. His face was so creased it looked like an old fruit. He was totally sunburned, and all I knew was he was old as hell. A laugh came from deep down in his guts and rattled on until he was coughing, so he pulled a cigarette from somewhere and lit up, offering the pack. "It's only been in some of the papers," he said, "but no one knows for sure. They don't want to admit it, that's what I think. But what are all the police cars for? That's what we're asking." "Well, what are they for?" I said, taking a cigarette. "You counted them? How many today?" "7, I said, shaking my eyes. "There were 7 cars round the fountain." "Yesterday there were 12. Day before that, 16. And the president was here, dropped in by helicopter." He started to laugh again. I passed a cigarette to Raphael, and we huddled back in the shade. "Those police down there, fooling around, walking the big man's house, I don't know why. It's all over as far as I can see. The show's over, so what's there to do? I guess they're standing around, all asking the same questions. You know who lives here, don't you? You know who you're visiting?" "Yeah," I said, "the senator." The gardener was smiling at us wider than ever, with his head on one side. "I worked here 22 years, he said. "Spoken to him twice. First time I said, 'Yes, sir,' and the second time I said, 'Thank you, sir.' He's the fattest man I ever saw, too. They had to get a car sent back and made bigger for him. I'd get sick on the food he throws away." He coughed and smoked deeper. "You know, I wish I could go inside. I want to go in there and hear what they're saying. I can guess, though. It's not hard to guess, maybe." "About what?" I said again. "What happened there, sir?" "He must be working hard covering it all up, trying to save his face. He'll spend anything not to look like a fool." I said nothing then. Let him tell it, I thought. He's getting to it. Raphael was right behind me, listening close, and the smoke was calming him. The old man closed his eyes and sucked on his cigarette. "Does me good," he said, "just to think about it." I think all those policemen are standing around, all very polite, and saying, "Sir, tell us again. How did you let your houseboy walk out of the door with $6 million?" He laughed loud and long, and Raphael started to smile too, and so did I. $6 million, the man said at last. Picked them up and took them out of the door. You know how he did it? We both shook our heads, smiling wider. Felt good just to see the old man having such a fine time remembering it. Everyone here knows, he said, but the papers don't have everything. They don't have the whole story yet. It was the boy they trusted. What did he do? I said. I could feel Raphael holding on to me tight because it sounded like the pieces were fitting together. Once again, we knew we were close to whatever it was we were chasing. The word is, he did it with a fridge. What? I said. Did what with a fridge? You saying $6 million? What? It's what the guards say, he said. One of the maids as well. The name's in the papers, but they won't say what he did. They won't say why they killed him either. The old man spat on the grass. Well, he was the houseboy here, worked here. Oh, I don't know. Not as long as me, but long. I knew him to talk to, smoke away with, and he was a nice enough boy. What I hear is that a little while back he gets told to buy a new fridge. The old one's dead, and the man needs a fridge for all that food. So the boy orders one, and men deliver it. The boy says, "Take the old one with you, please." Fair enough. It's got to go. It's just junk to the senator. These delivery men, they have no objections. There'll be parts they can sell, so they load it up, and our boy rides with them in the truck with the gate pass. Chats with the guards, laughs, cool as cool. All on camera, so they say. The fridge, all roped up in sheets, but he doesn't get down. He stays on the truck to show them a shortcut. Then he stays all the way. Says he wants the fridge for himself because he knows he can make something on it. So he gives them 2,000 pesos to set it down just where he wants it. And that's good money. Nobody's making problems with that kind of money. Some graveyard, they say, not even a house. And that's the end of the trail. He's never seen again. He'd put the money in the fridge, I said. The gardener was laughing again. That's what everybody thinks, $6 million in a broken fridge. He nodded at the house and the police cars. And they're just standing around, I bet. No idea where it's gone. What a boy. I just wish I'd got to shake his hand. He stopped smiling. How did they get him? I said. I don't know. The papers don't say. He threw his cigarette into the grass. I know he had a little girl, so they could have traced her, maybe. Right, Raphael spoke for the first time. His name was Jose Angelico, wasn't it? He said. The old man looked up and stared. Then he nodded. You read about it, huh? You know they found the fridge? I guess they're asking where he put the cash. That's what they want. I tell you, boys, I hope he gave it away before they killed him, because I believe that son of a bitch in there's been stealing for years, stealing even from me and you. Can you believe it? He was shaking his head. Vice President, he said, and he spat on the grass. I hope he never gets it back, not a cent of it, and I hope the shock kills